What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another Black Desert video. So today I wanted to talk about grind spots. Now this one is going to be more for the intermediate to end game level players, and as you guys know, I've made a bunch of videos talking about grind spots, like the best places for silver, XP, with Agris, for new players and beginners. And so I thought this one would be more tailored towards intermediate to end game players. So if you want to watch any of the other ones, I'll leave a link in the description based on whatever you were looking for. But as we all know, when you're at the end game, there's a good chance you're grinding for a few reasons. One, for maximum amount of silver, or two, because there's something in particular you want. For example, like treasure items, and or, you know, something very specific that may not give the most silver, but it's, you know, like rare. So with that said, as usual, the way we look at grind spots is we look at it by AP, and so you guys can sort by this lowest to highest. And for intermediate levels, I would probably say it's around like 280-ish and up. And then we'll talk about all the end game spots. I'll talk about, like, you know, if there's a treasure item in the area, how long it'll take you on average, how long it might have taken me, or if I'm still working on something. And, you know, anything else, we'll talk about more of how long does it take to get it and how much silver and all that stuff. So with that said, we are going to start around intermediate. I would say is probably around, you know, realistically 260, but, you know, higher up. Let's just start over here. All right, Elvia Ore Camp. This is probably the spot where people start to realize that, oh, you can make a lot of silver by, you know, just running in circles and stuff. So this is the part where before that, you're just like making decent amount of silver. Ore Camp is probably the one of the spots where you're just like, oh, that's where people are making billions an hour plus from. So as we all know, Ore Camp used to be 280. Then I don't think they actually nerfed it. They just changed the recommended to 260, so like difficulty is still there, but it wasn't that difficult to begin with. So where a lot of the money comes from is basically trash loot and all of these that are vendorable, so like these seeded avoidant things. What they're actually used for is upgrading your black star armors, which I talked about is basically a trap for beginners, and you shouldn't be making them in general. So all of this you just vendor to the shop, and I would say this spot is very consistent. And you know how when you grind other places, the majority of the money you get is from the rare accessory drop or something. So Elvia Ore Camp is generally just straight silver directly to the vendor, very consistent. There's no rare items, which I understand could be very boring to people because you're just trying to get the thrill of the rare treasure item or whatnot. But if you're trying to make a lot of money and you're in the 260 area, this spot's very good. Next, we were talking about Honglim Base. So this one came out with Land of the Morning Light. It was a recent one, and I think this one is actually a very strong intermediate level grind spot. I have a few videos of it. So what this doesn't tell you is, like, you know how there's a lot of different tags for everything? Like, sometimes there's you use Agris and everything. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's better with the coin. So Honglim Base, if you use a coin here, and if you don't know what a coin is, it's this thingy, the golden blessing of Agris. Essentially, drop rate amount is multiplied. So this spot is very good for people in the 270s, and I would say even up to like 300s, to be honest. The reason why is because it gives a bunch of these. Everyone needs these for fail stacks, and it's essentially like the Dark Origin of Hunger, but half the value of that. I had to do some testing to actually realize that, but you're also here for a lot of other things, such as, you know, the Wand and Bond crystals, which are Essence of Dawn. It's not really that great for Essence of Dawn, but the trash loot makes up for it. So if you're into 270s up to, like, I would say even 300s-ish AP, this is a very strong spot. And it's very easy. It's a tower spot, which means You just go there, and then things come to you, and instead of doing a rotation, it's just one circle, essentially. All right, so Primal Giants. This one is, I would say it's actually low-key good because people aren't there as often, and the chance of getting all of these, I would say the Blessed Soul thing is, don't expect to get this, but distos are actually at a decent rate, and if you're in the AP range, this is more silver than Star's End, and you also get a bunch of Crystallized Despairs, which are actually somehow going up in price. You would think they've just been stabilized, but they've been going up a little bit, so actually kind of good. And if you just want a quiet place to grind, this is the way to go. And yeah, so there's other contested spots that make more, but if you just like grinding in peace for an hour or two, that's good. Olin's is, very popular just across the board. Olin's normal one, Dekia 1 and Dekia 2. The downside is obviously you have to find a party for the most efficiency. It's a treasure item spot, one for the Rich Merchant Ring, arguably the hardest piece to get. I'm going for it myself, and I would say the hardest part is finding a party, you plus 2 others, and aside from that, very solid silver, whether you're doing regular Dekia 1 or 2. Very just good across the board spot. Gyphon Underground. As we all know, this is the #1 spot for XP. And you know what this Monster Zone thing doesn't tell you? It is a very strong XP spot, as in it's the #1 XP spot in the game. So if you're trying to push yourself to level 66 or above, this is probably where you'll be doing it. So yeah, in terms of silver itself, I would say it's okay-ish. Accessory prices are kind of dependent. Some people grind here because Forest Furies are, in high demand. We made a video of that. But yeah, Gyphon Underground, what the game doesn't tell you is this is a strong XP spot. So I actually wanted to show you something that, I wanted to say that, if Pearl Abyss, if you're watching this, it's a little bit outdated, and you should look at the tags over here. And so, sometimes if you want to focus on a certain thing, you just, click this one, it'll show you whatever. But, yeah, things that your average person who doesn't watch videos or streams wouldn't know is, things like this. All right, so let's see. Dekia Sulfur. I'm going to be honest, this spot is better than regular, obviously, but the only reason why you're here is simply for the archaeologist map in general. I actually heard that the archaeologist map is the easiest one to go for of all the treasure pieces. Admittedly, I need to go for that at some point, but it's I have so many other things to do. It's low on my priority list. But if you're going for Dekia earrings, in my experience, it's once every maybe 2 hours ish for that. Maybe 1 an hour, but maybe 1 every 2. That's my experience there. And then everything else is a bonus. Kind of the same thing with Dekia Pilaku. There's only one difficult thing that's there, the one enemy type. If you get a back attack, it kind of chunks your health for some reason. But the only reason why you're here is archaeologist map piece, and then Debo's is actually, this is 1 in 3 hours from my experience. So I think if you were going for the scrolls for the relic stuff, Dekia just for some reason does not equal out to other spots. So the drop rate for scrolls are low, but if you're going for map pieces, then it's probably better. Histria. This spot is probably the most grinded spot that I have. I went for the Elton piece. The whole compass took me about 500 hours, and the Elton piece being 400 of those. But either way, if you can grind here at 300, I would recommend doing towers instead of doing the river rotation or the back one. I literally know Histria runes like the back of my hand. I know every spot, but I would just recommend doing this one just because it's a little bit more engaging and it's like less brain numbing or something, mind numbing. So if you want going for Elton piece or like I guess even the Vodkin one, but realistically Elton, try to do the tower. Akhman Temple. This Akhman Temple in general is a very confusing maze if you've never been in there. I got mine before Dekia even came out for either of these, but I guess like if you just want to stand in one spot, AoEing everything down, it's probably better these days if you can grind it. So if not, there's a small river or in Akhman Temple, if you're just trying to do regular, I think you could probably clear faster doing regular, but it's like going down a hall and it is basically a big loop on like, what is it? The second floor from the tower at the bottom, which doesn't make any sense if you don't know what I'm talking about. I have a video of it. Just go find it. Just go search up like Akhman Temple or something grind spot and maybe my video will pop up. Hex Sanctuary. This spot actually used to be really good back when Crystallized Despairs were like 60 or 70 mil. And this was pre-Landed a Morning Light when people were trying to collect these to get the Dawn Gloves on day one. That's what I did until we all realized that, oh, you actually don't need to spend that much. Basically, I overpaid for mine, but I got my gloves on day one as as normal people shouldn't do, but it is what it is. So this spot is a very chill spot. It's a very easy rotation. It's one big like oval loop. This is kind of a debate in terms of thinking that distortion earrings are normal. They're not really. Like you'll get one maybe once every like 10 hours. So if you're actually trying to go for them, you might as well go somewhere else for that. But other than that, like very chill spot. If you actually need any of these, I would say it's probably up there with Giants to be on the higher end of Crystallized Despair drop rate. Next, okay. Crypt of Resting Thoughts. So this spot is still good. It's also a spot that drops the Rich Merchant Ring piece. Now at Forgotten Limbo Seals and all of these. If you're going for the actual lungs or leaves for the Orzeka, it's a very strong spot. I would say that Debo belts are, you know, like if you're going for Debo Rekka accessories across the board, the belts here drop at a higher rate than all the other spots. To give you an example, Ash Forest to get a Debo necklace is probably once every 2-ish hours, whereas here you probably get one every hour on average, and plus it drops a bunch of other rarer stuff as well. So, you know, like if you're going for these, probably the best spot. And Limbo Seals overall, very solid spot. I'm glad that I am done with it because like it's kind of depressing grinding in dark cave spots like this. However, if you don't care and it's all about silver and everything, solid. All right, Ash Forest, I would not recommend it. It's awful. There's reasons to be here, but it's not fun. It's not good for XP. It's not really good for silver either, but you're here for Debo rings and Rich Merchant. Dokkaebi Forest. Okay, so you know how this is a 310 spot. It's very underwhelming, I'm not gonna lie. If you're here for all of these things, it's just not that good. And you know how they recently added the Golden Pig Cave? I know this is like considered 30 AP difference, but I realistically don't think that 340 is, you know, required to be here, because I have a video of it, and admittedly, yes, I am overgeared, but I've also watched people in like the 320-ish AP grind here. It's, you know, the only tough part was probably the boss at the end, but like grinding itself, you could most likely do fine at 320-ish. And next week they're actually making a bunch of tweaks to Golden Pig Cave to make it a little bit easier, and it's going to be a lot more smooth, like just across the board. And yeah, so if you're going for any of these crystals, try Golden Pig Cave. The only downside is that it opens at some random time during the day, and I don't think anyone actually knows. Just go to Garmoth and they have a thing where it's like open or closed. But either way, I would probably rather go to Honglim base over Dokkaebi. And then if you are higher up in the gear score, Golden Pig Cave. So I would just skip this one entirely. It's either Honglim or Golden Pig. Okay, next thing. Kadri and Crescents. So these are very similar in terms of silver and hour. I heard Crescents right now is kind of something is bugged with it, and apparently it's like one-shotting people. So you know the little totem thingy or whatever, the spawn things that buffs the other enemies, apparently that's what is killing people. So if you want to take a break from this spot, Kadri is probably equivalent in silver from my experience. So Crescents uses more Agris an hour by a little bit more, but it's also more silver. Whereas, like, if you're grinding long term, let's say if you're doing 1 hour with Agris, it's probably better to do it at Crescents. But if you're doing like 5 hours with Agris, this one is better. I don't know how to describe it properly, but if you're doing hour by hour, it's about like a 200 mil difference an hour, assuming you do meet minimum AP requirements and whatever, like 950 plus. So basically, Kadri is better for long grind sessions, whereas if you're just using your daily Agris, then Crescents is better. Kadri is just long periods. But either way, these are both very solid spots, roughly around 1.5 billion silver an hour. I would say both of these spots maybe drop like 1 Debo an hour. If you get the Limbo Seal, that's a little bit lucky, plus that's +2. But yeah, I would say these are both very solid. Next, we have Ezerheed Highlands. I still have no idea if I even pronounced that right. I think this is probably one of the higher drop rates if you're still going for the Kabur artifacts. And these are considered best in slot PvP, or not PvP, PvE artifacts. And of course, it drops the highest amount of embers and fragments. So if you're going for the Ator shoes, these are what you use it for. And then 100 Kabuas equals 1 artifact plus all this. So I think this spot fell off a little bit when Kabur artifacts were, they used to be 100 mil when it came out. And then over time, as people get more, these start dropping in price. So it used to be close to 3 bill an hour. But now that they like nerfed a little bit of all this, I would say it's still decent. Maybe like 1.5 bill an hour, assuming you meet, minimum requirements for the spot. I don't think it's bad, but it's one of those things where you kind of have to be alert a little bit. And it's not much like of a rotation, but it's alert still. So City of the Dead, they have tried to buff this spot a couple of times. You know what I hate? They added all of these titles after I got my telescope. A lot of Ulukita spots, I spent like 100+ hours at each of them. And then these weren't even in the game yet. So I'm like, oh, okay, so here's my telescope. I was not carried for any of them. So I wish these were introduced when they came out, but that's beside the point. This spot's not that great. I have a video. It took me about like, I think 1.1 million trash loot to get this one. Dekia Turos. I think I heard people say that this is pretty decent. A lot of the silver comes from the embers. And then Turos, that used to be good, but not anymore. So a lot of silver comes from embers, limbo seals, and everything else. But if you can find another person to grind with, it's decent. Dekia Olins. We talked about Olins before. Olins is just good across the board. I'm still working on it myself. Thornwood is now low-key good. It used to be very good when Ominous were like 300 mil each. Now they're only 100, which is not bad. But if you have never grinded here, what makes the spot so good is that the Ominous Ring drop rate is actually very high. So you know how when you grind a spot, you're probably thinking, oh, you get like 1 accessory an hour. This spot gives you like between 3 to like 8 of them an hour. So like a lot of the silver comes from the rings. Plus you get all the extra bonuses of like the limbo seals and everything else. So I don't know how much exactly you make now, but it used to be like 2 bill an hour, 2 to 3 bill. Now it's probably at least 1 bill and maybe 1.5 on average RNG with Ominous Rings. So yeah, pretty decent. You could watch videos of that. You know, I'll just leave a link in the description to all my grind list playlist or my grind spot playlist, and then you can just find the video and then you can see what it's all about. So yeah, I have a ton of time in here. And then Dekia Ash Forest, once again, not great. I literally never want to be there again. Cyclops Land, if you need Dawn Earrings for whatever reason, surprisingly, Dawn Earrings are actually very expensive. And, you know, they're mostly used to melt it into Essence of Dawns, which is why they're expensive. But Cyclops Land, very decent spot. All right, Quint Hill. This spot is a lot of base silver. You don't really get too much in terms of distos, but like they're not uncommon. But this is a very good aggro spot. You could use the coin here as well. And, you know, it just gives a bunch of crystallized despairs plus trash loot. So this one is actually a very good spot. I think on average, assuming you meet whatever numbers here, you could probably make like 2.5 billion silver an hour. Billion silver, just because all of these sell, plus trash loot is very high. And yeah, I just think overall it's pretty decent. So if you've never grinded here, it's basically you do a triangle, like, you know, Jade Starlight Forest, right? Do a triangle rotation, big enemies, and then just burst them down. So it's not that many enemies, but they're stronger. So it's kind of like Olin's essentially. But yeah, it's soloable and very good. Tungrad Ruins. I would put this in the top 3 grind spots for silver. It also gives you a telescope piece, which is obviously very good. And, you know, if you're looking for origins or essences, this is probably the spot to go next to Dark Seekers. Dark Seekers, I would say, is probably number 1 or 2 next to Dekia Olin's 2. So like Tungrad, Dark Seekers, Olin's, top 3 spots for silver, in my opinion. You have to be very geared for all of these. Golden Pig, I would put it up there, but it's limited. So you can't just wake up at any given time and grind there. It has to be open. So that's the only negative side. However, things that are permanently open, Dark Seekers, I would probably put this as my favorite and best spot for silver, simply because you can grind there solo, and it's a very high drop rate for a lot of these. Olin's is very strong if you get a good group and all these extra drops and stuff. So if you're at the end game, here's where I'd recommend Dark Seekers, Tungrads, Olin's, and that's about it. Dekia Ash Forest 2 sucks, and you're here exclusively for all of these, and that's it. So with that said, I want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions for anything grind spots related, feel free to leave it in the comments, or you can just join the Discord, and I have a bunch of other info that you could check out as well. But whether you're a beginner or an endgame player, I have a bunch of videos. So once again, I'll leave a link in the description to other spots you might be interested in. Best spots are silver, XP with Agris. For beginners, no matter where you're at in the game, chances are I have something tailored towards you. So I'll be back tomorrow with more videos on updating like various older guides and everything. So if you're looking to get better at this game, chances are I have something for you. And I'll see you guys later. Peace.